What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Grimey Pod. This is the startup of the John Hughes series. We have a special guest with us, Anna. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Anna Stevenson. I am a co-producer of Lake Shift, and these are two of my favorite people in the world. They're very nice to let me on here.
They're also
Thank you for coming on.
Big part of Grimey Pod. If you see the intro, they are the monster that's also in The Neighbor. Check out The Neighbor if you haven't done so already. We're going to be talking about 16 Candles, along with Weird Science and The Breakfast Club, which are three pretty known movies. If you probably have heard of them, if you haven't seen them, I understand. But it's time to throw it back, give it a little 80s vibe, and get a little uplifting during this quarantine.
Whoa, this is heavy.
So let's start off with 16 Candles, guys. I know this is definitely a big movie. A lot of people, a lot of older crowd, I would say. I know a lot of our peers haven't really seen it, but it's definitely a movie of people. It's really lighthearted. People kind of reference to a lot. I'm a big fan of Anthony Michael Hall. I feel like he really uplifted this movie a lot. Big spoilers, by the way, obviously. And I want to say that I think Michael Hall was really funny in this. I love him being a good freshman in this movie. He's just a really funny freshman. I feel like he pulls off the freshman vibe really well. I don't know if he's much of a geek per se. I didn't really see that as much. I saw his friends were geeks, but I don't know. It was kind of interesting how they kind of made him a geek, just labeled him as that.
That's how they credited him too. You see the credits go by and he's just like the geek.
Geek, yeah, exactly. And I didn't really understand that too much, but it is what it is. I guess back in the day, I don't know. Everyone had labels per se. And
he looked like a nerd to me.
I mean, Anthony Michael Hall is in all three of the movies that we're talking about as a nerd.
As a nerd, yeah. But I believe this is his first movie too.
I think it's his first movie. It's not his first acting credit, but I think it's his first movie.
Fair enough. And then we also have Molly Ringwald. She's pretty much the main character of this movie. I kind of like her story's a little. It's interesting. I like that. Her birthday is happening, and everyone seems to forget her birthday because it's overshadowed by her sister's wedding. So that's pretty relatable. I could see that happening. It's messed up on the parents' side. That's pretty fucked up. But I don't know. Did you guys like that the parents forgot about her birthday? Was that too direct? I felt like it was kind of it was a little cheesy, I will say. I've seen this movie before, and we were watching it. It was a little cheesy, obviously, and a lot of the stuff is cheesy in this movie, but it's cute. I just felt like
80s movies.
Yeah,
in general.
I felt like with this, I was kind of like, when I was watching it and I saw that the parents forgot, I was kind of waiting for that punchline of them being like, we didn't forget, Bob, here's a birthday cake, but it never happened. So it was kind of like, I don't know, it was interesting.
I appreciated the follow-through on that, I guess. No, not only are they dicks, they were dicks the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
They followed through.
It's weird. The main story, and the main character were my least favorite parts of the movie by quite a bit. I didn't find myself super invested in the love story, and I didn't find myself really caring all that much about Molly Ringwald's character. It just wasn't something that was particularly interesting to me. What ended up really sticking with me was all of the background elements of this movie and all of the side characters and the supporting cast. That's what really stood out to me. The production design was awesome. There was a bunch of comedy hitting in the background. All of the extras were, seemed to just enhance the world of the high school and all that. That's where this movie stood out to me.
That's almost ironic in a way, is because her character is supposed to be invisible. So enjoying all of the background elements is almost continuing the theme of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. How'd you guys feel about one of my favorite characters, Along Duck Dong?
You can get away with so much racism in the 80s. Insane.
Truly. Honestly, the word faggot is in every single one of these movies. So.
I think it's multiple times in all of them, right?
You can check mark how many times.
The drinking game.
Yeah. Exactly. Whether it's racism or it's using the word faggot. It's so it's so crazy because when you look at 80s movies and then you think about modern days, especially, like we'll talk about Weird Science later, but fucking
seriously.
Weird Science, it would never see the light of day today.
These are
a lot of
these
are movies that could only exist in the time that they came out.
Well, listen,
is the vibe that I got watching through all of them. It's like you can't have these exist. Like that's one thing that I did appreciate about all of them is that the stories that happened couldn't take place anywhere else or during any other time. Like going into it, like I was excited for these movies. I'd never seen any of them before.
Okay.
And so this is my first time watching all of these movies. And so going into it, I didn't have super high expectations just because like it might just be me getting sick of 80s nostalgia in present day
like Stranger
media.
Things.
So yeah, where like it's just a bit of an oversaturation, like in It also, like the new It movies. Not that I dislike any of those, it's just kind of a lot. But actually watching through them, they are very enjoyable. So like I understand where that nostalgia comes from. I had another point. I don't.
Long Duck Dong.
There we go.
Yeah, that's our boy.
That's an iconic movie.
That's
really
a party.
Is.
I want to party with that.
Dude,
guy.
and then did you guys catch the cymbals?
Agreed.
The cymbals crashed every time they said his name.
Oh, dude, I was about to get to that.
The sound effects in all of these John Hughes movies are so funny. Fucking titty boing. Oh my god. Oh,
it's so that stuff was like a lot of the comedy in this movie really landed.
Yeah,
like the story I felt like was not hollow, but it fell short for me in this one. But the comedy hit home big time. Like I was watching this with my mom, who hadn't seen it in how many years, and we were both laughing our ass off.
All of John Hughes' movies, especially the coming of age movies, are outrageous. Like those situations can only happen. The thing about John Hughes' world building is that the world literally revolves around his main character. Nothing would happen without this character, and I think that's why it's funny. That's what comedy's all about. The audience knows something that maybe the main character doesn't. So the sound design is great.
Were you guys surprised that this was a PG movie?
Wow, the land of make-believe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think all of these are.
This movie it is rated PG. It has an F-bomb and it has nudity and it is rated PG. This is before PG-13 was
Well, that
thing.
proves how, like we were talking before, like all of these movies would not see the light of day in
during this time,
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, like they would probably be considered like indie movies. Like for example, like I think 16 Candles, maybe the modern day version of that could be something like Booksmart. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that 16 Candles could have like modern day adaptations, not like direct adaptations, but movies in that same vein could come out every so often just to like represent the era that they're made and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, I think that PG-13 came into effect the following year, because I know that it was Temple of Doom and Red Dawn that caused the PG-13 rating to exist.
Yeah, I mean, like, but that's what's so funny, because like in the 80s, everything was relating to either like, especially coming of age movies, was all about sex. Like that was the epitome of 80s movies, was how can I fuck this girl?
This
but Molly
16.
Ringwald is great.
Like I don't know, like
right.
Like that's
but this is like despite these characters being teenagers, like this is almost an adult comedy. Right, it's definitely aimed at the teenage crowd. It's like, hey, no, this is what like you're about to experience all this stuff as an adult, How did you guys?
Well, and we're all in our 20s. Did you guys have this high school experience where this is like all? You know what I mean?
No, not at all. No, not at all.
Because.
No,
it's relatable in like a kooky way, but it's not like it doesn't necessarily pertain,
So like, Romeo, you went to high school out in the Chicago area, right?
I did.
So like your experience would be at least closer to this.
What's funny is that so where they did a lot of the stuff, a lot of the schools I used, or a lot of the schools that were around where I went to high school, he actually did a scene, one of the cafeteria scenes, I believe in Breakfast Club, he did at my high school, which is, I don't know, I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, no, it's kind of the same vibe. And what's also funny is Mean Girls is like typically like the same neighborhood-esque of where these old movies were too, which is Evanston or
This is Shermerville, isn't it? Shermerville, Illinois, or Shermerville, Illinois?
Sure.
Something like that.
It's. I don't know what it's not. I don't think that's an actual place. That's not an actual place in Illinois.
That's what he calls.
Yeah, but that's what he calls
movies,
them.
Right?
Yeah. But they're based off of like the North Shore community, which is like Skokie, Evanston, Glenview. You got all those.
So is it a fictional town
it's a fictional
set in a
town,
real geographic area?
Yeah. It's like
okay.
I think it's like Haddonfield too. Like Haddonfield for Michael Myers is not a real town in Illinois. It just kind of has that Illinois vibe, but it's a fake town. That's not a real place. Yeah. So, but you still feel that like that Chicago, like that high school vibe, which is what I like. In the sense of set design, like I really enjoyed that a lot because it brought a lot of memories back home.
And they film them in actual high schools. I mean, a lot of people build sets, but like they filmed this in the local high school.
And he's from there, so that's.
Do you remember the neck brace girl?
That's John Cusack.
I'm in love with the girl
John Cusack. Yeah,
that's Jessie from Toy Story.
She's also in School of Rock. It's crazy.
Yeah.
This is so
Those
awesome.
are the only other two movies I know her from.
And her brother's John Cusack.
Like, he's one of the other nerds.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
She was funny on the bus scene. That was.
Oh my god! Yeah,
they kept like going back to her, man. Like every time there was a little bit of a pause, they went back to her. It was neck brace girl.
Like one of the things I was really curious about how much of that was actually intended to be there from the beginning, and how much of that was just like on set. They're like, oh, let's get another shot of this. So I looked up the script, and I think she's just called Neck Brace Girl. But she's in it the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well,
and I think so that's this was all very
too.
deliberately planned.
Let's get to the ratings for 16 Candles. I guess I could start off. I'm gonna give this movie a 7 out of 10. I think it's a really good time. I probably will watch it again. Those little things that just kind of threw me off a little bit. I wasn't really interested much in the love story, but I do agree that the extras make it really worthwhile, and the scenery is really good. That's pretty much why I'd give it a 7 out of 10. What about you guys?
I'm also actually going to give it a 7 out of 10. Yeah, like I said, I don't particularly find myself interested in the main character or her story, but it is the environment and the world that this takes place in, and all of the things that help bring that to life really set this apart from everything else that is like it. I don't know.
Even if you're not interested in like the main
that
story,
stuff, I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, it's still engaging with that other stuff. Like I still like want to watch it, even though I'm not as invested in her story.
All the like. Not being invested in the main character and her story is such a huge flaw that should have tanked the movie for me. But all of the background stuff kept me so invested in watching this movie that it really elevated it above anything that I would have expected it to be. So yeah,
I'm also going to give it a 7 out of 10, but I disagree.
That's fair.
I was involved with Molly Ringwald's story, even though she's passive aggressive as fuck. But I agree with you on the background. I love the sound effects. I love the iconic music. Mm-hmm. I love the iconic shots of like her in front of the candles. I think that this is one of those movies that like. When your kids become a teenager, you definitely have to show them this, because it's not only just like a mark in time, but it still pertains a lot to even the modern day person in high school.
Yeah, you go back to the shots. I wanted to mention. I love the. Remember, the shot where they're doing pull-ups. I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that was so.
That
funny.
was a great. Yeah, I love that.
Well,
because like you're watching and you're like, there's no way they're actually doing that. They're holding it and they're having full conversation.
That's totally.
But
80s.
then they pull back and then they're actually not doing it. Like they
and there's also that close up where he's dancing. Like, do you remember that? Like that singular close up. He starts up like right here, and then as he's dancing, he goes from like a medium to a close up, and it's the longest dance shot I've ever seen. It's almost like they told him like, just fucking go, my guy. You do it, we'll just keep rolling. You're doing great. Like you can even see like in his face, he's like, like, when are we stopping?
Next movie is The Breakfast Club, which is a big part of filmmaking. I really enjoy it a lot. It's funny. I think every part of this movie is funny, or at least it's engaging. It's so engaging. Like I'm definitely interested in each character. I don't know. I've seen this movie so many times.
Yeah.
And
this is also my first time watching this.
Bruh. Are you serious?
Still,
Really?
Well, okay. I guess let's ask
goodness.
you, Tyler. Let's ask you, Tyler. How did you feel about it?
Yeah. So I mean, I was very surprised at how much I ended up enjoying this, because this is a movie that's been hyped up by lots of different people throughout the years for me. So I went into it with certain expectations, and I wasn't sure if it was going to meet them.
Okay.
But no, I liked the characters. I didn't find myself liking all of them. What was the one name? I don't remember their names.
John
So
Bender.
let's talk about the archetypes. There's the athlete, the basket case, the princess, the nerd, and the criminal, which is Bender, who is like
I guess the basket case would have been the one that I didn't care for all that much.
Okay.
That's fair.
Not that it didn't fit the character or anything like that, but I just found myself not giving a shit about her.
But that's the kind of vibe.
All the other characters, like I liked the story, and I liked how this was basically just a bottle movie. And it was really it made good use of, okay, we have 5 different opposing personalities all stuck in the same room. Let's see what we can do. And I really liked everything that took place in there. I thought was great. When they like started doing the more silly stuff, I didn't really care for it as much. Like when they went out and they started running away from the teacher, like that scene.
Yeah, that's fair.
I felt like it was unnecessary and distracting. And a lot of scenes like that I found sort of took away from it, because I really just enjoyed the scenes where they were just sitting and talking with each other.
That's fair. I think
that was awesome.
I think that's kind of what he wanted to do, though, is that he kind of wanted to take them out of just talking and sitting, because that's just the boring, like, I feel like it'd just be a boring type of movie. And it's also having them have that chemistry of working together.
Like I love this movie because even in the opening, it opens up with the David Bowie quote, and it talks about how the kids are aware of their surroundings. And part of the biggest thing about this movie is that not only are these 5 individual kids from different backgrounds, they all have something in common. And that it's their parents don't respect them, or the authority or society that they're a part of don't respect them. Part of the the sillier scenes are kind of meant to let you sympathize with them a little bit. It's like it's like becoming friends with somebody. Not everything is them sitting down and we're having these deep conversations. Like even when Claire takes Allison, Claire is Molly Ringwald's character, and Allison is Ali Sheedy. Claire takes Allison's character and does her makeup, but she's just looking at her and she's like, you know what? Let's make you pretty. And I have a whole other opinion about that, but
I do too.
It's still a very sweet moment between them, because in the very beginning there was between them, they're complete opposites, but also for women in film, it is very rare for girls in film to speak to each other that's not about a boy. And
there's a test about that also.
There is.
It's called the Bechdel test. Bechdel.
Yes. So that movie passes the Bechdel test by having Allison and Claire speak to each other about anything that's not male related. So they're talking about either their home life with each other, or they talk about, well, I guess technically they do talk about boys, because they talk about like the lie of being a nymphomaniac, or Claire being a virgin, or but I mean that almost comes down more to how society views women who either have sex or don't have sex. She says it in the movie like, you're a prude if you don't, and you're a slut if you do. So and as for the boys, like Andrew, Brian, and Bender. So Andrew is the jock. He threatens Bender like twice in the first half of the movie, and until Bender talks shit back at him. But they kind of find like a common ground, and Brian's character is so important. And
he's my favorite.
And it really speaks. Yeah. But the thing is that even though all of these kids come from different backgrounds, we can probably relate. And you didn't relate with Allison, which is totally fine. She's definitely a character that's more niche out of the four of them, I feel, or the five of them, excuse me. But I feel like I could relate to every single one of those kids.
Yep.
And not everybody gets along with their parents in the same way, or gets along with authority in the same way. And it's Andrew's character has a lot of pressure on him because he's not capable of thinking for himself. His dad does all of the decision making for him. He doesn't necessarily hate his parents, but he doesn't grasp the concept that they have such massive control on him. And Bender is overtly aware of his abuse situation. Brian's character, obviously, spoiler alert, he talks about how he was going to kill himself and how he was had a gun in his locker, and that's how he ended up in detention, because he was going to kill himself because of the immense amount of pressure that his parents put on him. And that this movie has a lot of weight to it, even in the silly parts. Like how the teacher threatens Bender, literally begs him to punch him so he can start a fight with him. And seriously. His reaction is a reaction to previous abuse. It's a lot deeper than just Bender being a douchebag, because he is. Because of his environment that he grew up in, that he reacts to situations to either act out because he's already seen as a problem. So what repercussions are there for him? And two, he reacts to somebody who wants to abuse him like an abuse victim, because he is one. So I mean, it's a great movie. I think that this is probably the reason why it gets the amount of hype that it does, is because it speaks to the kids' emotional state and feelings. And using that David Bowie quote at the time is very on the nose.
I imagine on rewatch, I'm going to enjoy it a lot more. But, going back to one of the things that you were saying, I really liked how they turned some of the really heavy dramatic moments into comedy also. And that also made it feel very real. Specifically, how you mentioned the nerd Brian, was that his character's name? How he had the gun that he was going to kill himself with, and then he mentioned that it was a flare gun, and then they're all like, "Wait, what? You're going to use a flare gun?"
You're an idiot.
Exactly. Like they take that super heavy, tragic moment.
He's like, "It's not funny," and they're like, "It's a little funny." Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because that's how life is. You know, like there are things that are quote unquote not funny.
It's very real.
That's
very
a much better
real.
point. Yeah, that's what Friends are.
That's what Friends do.
You can laugh at anything. Comedy's a lens through which you view life.
It's subjective. I don't know if I would say that there's a lot of satire in Breakfast Club, but I definitely think it does the job of shining a different light on problems.
Yeah.
And reacting to it more carefully.
Well, and it also, I like that it didn't have the teacher be just the douchebag. Well, I guess we mentioned Bender's a douchebag, but the teacher's an asshole.
He's awful.
I like how he wasn't just that, because he easily could have been. But the scene with him and Bender that you were talking about made him a little bit more. And then it was him, and I think Carl is the name of the janitor. Do I have that?
Yeah, Carl.
Carl. That scene with those two was awesome. Like that was a terrific scene, because it made you understand where okay, why is this guy being such a dick? Oh, because he lost something along the way, like not person or anything. I'm not going to be able to phrase this properly, but like he lost his perspective on how to view and treat all these kids that go to his high school. He's like, no, they are less than, because they don't behave the same way that
we
that
did.
my favorites did. You know,
Yeah.
like
Right.
he's unwilling to adapt.
Anthony Michael Hall acts black twice throughout. So he does it in both Breakfast Club and he does it in Weird Science.
Oh, I was going to
where
talk
he
about
got
that.
high and he was like, "Come on, man!" And it's like, "What?"
I don't know what
telling you
he
to
just
do
really
was so
wants.
ridiculous.
I don't know.
So funny. But yeah, no, the getting high scene is also really great because I mean,
Yeah, I had a note about that.
Bender's the stoner. He fucking brings
Yeah, just a bag.
the weed and everyone's like.
I love how
might
he
as well
just shoved it in
participate.
Brian's pants. Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is yours,
Yes.
buddy. You hold tight."
Well, and there's a lot of solidarity, like, you know, obviously, like, that's a funny thing, but, like, there's a lot of solidarity with these kids. Like, even though they don't fucking like each other, they're always covering Bender's ass. Like,
They're covering each other's ass, too. Like,
Yeah, no,
like they
absolutely.
look out for each other.
they might, even though they might not like each other, they show a level of solidarity and respect to each other because fuck the guy in
Exactly.
power.
Yeah, that was. I really liked that.
Yeah.
And one thing that I put is like, I wonder how big, because now that, you know, weed is starting to become legal in multiple states,
And
it
it's
was
already
most
legal here.
certainly not the case in the
In
80s.
Illinois?
Like, that
Yeah,
was something
no,
you went to jail
no.
for a long time for. So I'm wondering how much of a bigger impact that scene, or like how different the impact would have been when the movie first came out versus now, you know? Like the meaning of the scene doesn't change, but like that's something that I wonder, you know?
I don't know. You're
Yeah, I
talking
wanna
about
hear
how big of a risk are these kids taking by smoking weed at school versus today, where if they did that, the punishment wouldn't be as
I mean, the
significant,
80s were
I feel.
coke time. Like,
Well, you're talking
I don't
about,
know, man.
that's true. And you're talking about a time where, like, again, this is, like we mentioned earlier, PG was like, you had freaking nudity, so I'm sure they were fine with...
This was a rated R movie, though.
This
one was rated R. Yeah.
That doesn't make
Breakfast
sense.
Club
Which is
is rated
funny,
R.
yeah, because,
that makes
like...
no sense to me.
But
that's probably why, because
it's because it says the F word more times.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Because the
You think
MPAA is bullshit. I will say it now. I will probably say it again. We'll have to keep a count throughout the episodes how many times I do that. But MPAA
because definitely
is
it would be rated maybe PG-13, maybe rated R now because of weed smoking.
It
but
would
I
be
feel
rated
like there's
R
weed
now because
smoking
of the language.
No.
Because
You know
it
what?
says
That's
the F word
true.
more than 2 times. No, because it says it more than once
I want to
in
know
both
what...
a sexual and non-sexual manner.
I want to know what Cheech and Chong was rated. Rated, because if that shit's lower than this, then that's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, because I mean, Breakfast Club is there isn't any nudity in Breakfast Club.
No, there's not.
And I mean,
it's the language.
That's crazy.
That's
crazy. Like, why is that the determining factor? And yet we have these movies where people are getting decapitated and stabbed through the face that are PG-13. Fuck if I know. MPAA is bullshit.
I feel like our generation is so loose when it comes to cursing. Like, I don't know if that's relatable because I'm only a part of the generation I'm a part of, but like, I almost forget that people get offended by the word fuck, because for me it's like it's like saying or like it's just another word. It's an adjective. It's everything. I don't know. It just doesn't. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have the same meaning. If I was like, yo, fuck you, but like I don't know.
There are ways to use it in a more like, I don't know, pronounced manner where like you're being serious. And same with bitch. It's like, dude, I'll say that all day, but like,
bitch is one of those words in the 80s that's used all the time, you know?
Yeah, and like Breaking Bad with Jesse, like, yeah, bitch. But then there's other times in that same, sorry, I rewatched the show. But like, there are other times where like, you know, where Walter calls Skylar a bitch, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm gonna cry. Like, that was so mean.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
it's how you use it. Like,
it's on the character. It's on the character that says
that.
it. It's on the character that says it too, though.
It's context.
That is
you know,
true. You're right. It is the character that says it.
Read
You're absolutely right.
transcription and say what it was meant, because it's all about like inflection and like the way that you say it and stuff like that too. So
and the awareness of social status in this movie is extremely apparent too, because I mean, you can Bender calls Brian like a wet dream, like a parent's wet dream, but he doesn't understand that behind the scenes how much pressure was on him. And I mean, Bender gets into a fight with Claire. Like, how fucked up is it that if you saw sweet little Brian walking down the hall, you wouldn't say shit to him? Even though we're friends now, or we think we're friends now. That's fucked up.
It is.
And she's like, yeah, but it's like, why won't you be the change of your friends? What does it matter what your friends think if you like them? I think that's a really important message in the movie too, especially for younger kids and especially kids entering high school, because like there's something that has never changed generationally, and it's the idea that we have to be in cliques. Like
the cliques have changed, but
the absolutely.
idea hasn't.
Right, and I think that maybe it's because I mean I graduated 2015, so I would say I'm pretty close out of high school.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 2016, so I'm 1 year closer.
Right behind me. Yeah. So, I mean, buddy.
My God. I was,
back in
that was my
day.
We would have still went to high school together, Romeo, so you're not that old.
Yeah,
I would have been promoting, I had a promotion ceremony in 2012 from the 8th grade to the 9th grade.
Well,
talk about
so you wouldn't have been there with us, but we would have been there. I would have been there with you.
But they also bring that in. We didn't even discuss this in 16 Candles. How he's like, it's kind of weird that a freshman would talk to a senior or something of that sort, because they always look down at them. It's kind of like the same type of scenario that, and they kind of justify it that it's okay to talk to people of certain age as well, and it's not just about cliques too, which they kind of specify with this. It's cliques. And so I don't know. It's very interesting how they do that, and I like it a lot. They
didn't even know each other's names in the beginning.
Exactly, and that's why I mean, I don't know. It's very good to change that up, and I like how John Hughes has that as being an ongoing scenario, and then develop it and fixing that type of issue and making it just very appealing and understanding. You know what I mean? I like that a lot. Let's give this movie a rating, yeah? How about that?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10. I think it's definitely just a movie that it will go down in history as a really great movie, and that a lot of, like we all mentioned it, a lot of people can relate to this. It justifies a lot of scenarios that people take for granted, and it changes the mood set of just high school in general. And I think that a lot of kids need to watch this to understand that it's this is how it used to be, and changes happen and it's evolving, and take it with appreciation.
This is probably going to change over time as I rewatch it, but for right now I'm going to stick with the 7. This is a movie, especially after knowing what I know now after having talked about it, going back to rewatch it, I am going to appreciate it more, and I'm probably going to end up bumping this up to like an 8 or a 9 in the future. Probably an 8 later, but for now it'll stick at a 7.
You definitely appreciate it more as you get older. I've noticed that.
I absolutely agree.
As soon as I watched it, I realized I'm like, okay, this needs to sink in before I fully appreciate it for what it is, because there was a lot, like it was one of those movies you can kind of tell every once in a while. It's like, oh, I watched it, but I need a couple weeks to think about it, and then I can really.
It's a lot going on. I mean, it's a lot of characters, so you do have to take time to grasp it and rewatch it. And even if you rewatch it, it's still enjoyable. That's one thing that's great about it. Yeah. What about you, Anna? What would you rate this?
I agree with you, Romeo. I would probably give it a 9 out of 10. I just kind of want to leave on the quote, because we talked about it, but I just want to quote it word for word. And these children that you spit on are, as they try to change their worlds, are immune to your consultations. They're quite aware of what they're going through. And that's the David Bowie quote from the beginning. This is the movie I was talking about being timeless, even though that there's a lot of the language that is considered dated, or things that wouldn't necessarily be in modern day movies. I think that the importance of the message behind this movie, and the especially socially, is extremely important, and is going to be relevant for generations to come.
on to our last movie of the discussion for today, and that's going to be Weird Science, which is definitely
Oh
a weird,
my god.
weird
Yes.
movie.
Fucking weird.
I've never seen this before. I've heard a lot about it though.
Neither.
I haven't
I've heard
either.
a
You
lot.
know that.
I've heard
Okay.
So I've heard a lot about it. I always hear it's funny, and it is funny. I will say there are funny moments. Now I didn't understand some things, but then again I took with this belief that it's the '80s, so not everything's gonna make sense per se. I mean, you look at Back to the Future. I mean, you got a weird guy hanging out with this teenage kid. And it's,
Don't you
it's just
dare
the time.
shit talk
And
Back
it's
to
the
the
same-
Future on this
This is,
podcast, Romeo.
I'm just saying. You gotta take it with a little disbelief. That's all I'm saying. So it's the same time.
That is true.
So I understand the point that you're trying to make, but I think that is the wrong example to use.
I don't know.
I disagree.
No,
I think
'cause
he's on the nail on the head.
I don't know. I am a Back to the Future
don't get me wrong.
stan,
I love
so-
Back to the Future. I'm just saying, if you really look at the context of Back to the Future, it's kind of weird.
You have to enter with the disbelief. It's a sci-fi.
Well, it's
movie.
also exactly.
This one is
So,
also technically kind of a sci-fi comedy.
one
No, I
thing,
get what you're saying, Romeo. I
one
got you.
thing that, and the reason that I said that was the wrong example is because I think that in the context of Back to the Future, the logic that movie sets up does make sense. Like the way
Right, no,
that
and
totally
that, I
and all
agree
that
with
stuff.
you.
I totally.
This movie does not.
This doesn't make sense.
this
No,
movie
you got. Yeah,
sets
no,
up-
it doesn't.
it
I get what you're saying.
Sets up logic and then it breaks it constantly, and it turns into something that's a little bit too absurd to follow.
Yeah.
To the point where it did
So-
eventually took me out of the movie.
I
But
feel like
I don't know.
I feel like when they made this movie, they had a really great time. Like I don't know. Like,
that is valid. That
like,
is very fair.
They just we're gonna do this. We're gonna do
Yeah,
this.
but they went with the
and-
first draft for the plot.
There was no plot. That's the problem.
Exactly.
There was no plot in this movie.
There wasn't
plot.
a plot.
I found,
There was no plot. to
it just
this,
sort of
yeah.
meandered through all of these various scenarios.
Yeah,
and then it ended up like at the end,
So
it
fucking
like
ridiculous.
it ended
Just
like
ended
it
up-
told this story, and I'm just like, what? Like
Yeah.
it just
No, you're right.
Like, there's
it's like
moments
she
in
was
this
like
movie that I
fucking Mary
like.
Poppins of the internet, and she was like, "Okay, goodbye."
Yeah.
and then she's also like, hey, you're gonna
The
be a
fucking
slug
Nanny
now, Bill
McPhee of
Paxton.
sex robots. Like I don't.
Oh, what the hell was that, Bill Paxton? Oh my God.
Dude, Bill Paxton
The
was a
entire movie,
treasure
man.
in this movie.
I-
I'm not gonna lie. I really did. I thought that he was very funny.
No,
Um,
I love that they Anthony
I loved his
Michael Hall's
haircut.
like, yeah, he bags
Yeah,
on. He's like,
yeah.
a guy with that kind of haircut is definitely a bad guy. Like it was funny. And,
Dude,
and
that was
it-
awesome. And
there's
like I
little
love how
jokes
he
like-
He's
comes
definitely a bad
home
guy.
with
Yeah.
like in full camo. His bedroom was full camouflage. Did you guys catch that? Like that. Like there's a bunch of that background stuff that really worked in this movie also, but it didn't come out as strong for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, because here's the
Alright.
thing. The fucking first part of the movie.
Oh, they get
It's like-
pants? Oh.
I loved the Frankenstein references though.
I
I
did
loved how it
too.
was
There's a
basically a
lot
rip-off
of references
Frankenstein.
in this movie too. There's
I
a
love that.
lot of them. There's
There
the
is.
Mad Max reference in there that was added towards the end. But holy shit, just the beginning of the movie, they just fucking jump right into it. They're like, "Yo, I want to
I want
fuck
those two. Yeah.
the perfect woman."
But it wasted no
And
time.
so they
in the
they
beginning.
have no like how does this kid know how to make a super
A woman. Yeah.
internet lady? And I love
Yeah.
the techno
I just-
the
and
techno synth.
I just like, yeah. I just like how the lady's just like, it's not,
It
Like, I
kind of
was-
appears, man.
that, and it's just like, she just like you would think like more robotic, oh, like, hi, what's my name gonna be? Like, it was just like, she just like, was just so suave, and I'm just like, that's not, I don't know, it didn't make and
She's
yeah, and she changes stuff, which I didn't get either.
Yeah,
So
like
it's
she
like,
Superpowers,
created
yeah.
cars.
yeah, and then like their suits and their IDs, like I just didn't, I don't know.
Okay, but I like so it's weird because a lot of the stuff that happened and the reason that it happened made no sense, and it was a very
Right.
thin.
They even
movie
say
on
it in
that
the movie.
sense.
They're like, I don't even know how that happened. They just,
No,
they just
but,
go for
like,
it.
I think it would be pretty enjoyable. Like there's definitely
Oh, yeah.
moments in this movie.
There's
where
There's
moments.
so much
it-
missing
like,
from it, though.
And yeah, no, it's
No, no,
it's to compare it to The Greatest Showman, which is a movie that I despise.
I
haven't seen
That's
that.
a movie that has some good music that is sewn together through the worst means possible.
Which this movie has great music.
And they reference too much with other movies songs. It's crazy.
But like the part where the Mad Max guys at the end when they're leaving, like they apologize and they turn super polite, like that was awesome. That was such a funny gag.
It was definitely a funny movie. I think that the weirdness, which obviously it's a weird movie, it's enjoyable and it's funny, but like it almost
got too big.
It's almost
too much
uncomfortable because obviously like once again there's like the difference between exactly. So in the beginning of like something like Breakfast Club or 16 Candles or shit, even Ferris Bueller, all of those movies, you know, are in the 80s. You know they're gonna say some shit that isn't okay now, but like all of Weird Science would never have gotten by an executive. Never. And like it's the whole movie.
Hey, so we're gonna have a couple of teenage boys objectify a woman in a computer, and then they're gonna do a bunch of stuff later.
Well, and we're also gonna minimize pedophilia, and we're also gonna like, and it's like, motherfucker, what is happening here? It's because
it was uncomfortable for a lot of it for me for that.
It was uncomfy. Yeah, and I get it. It's like it's supposed to be like, teenage boys, especially freshman teenage boys, all they do is like want to fuck. So
and also have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, but like that was part of the issue that I had is they're supposed to be like ultra geniuses who created a whole person from their computer, and they're just kind of fucking idiots like the entire movie. And I get it. It's supposed to be like the social.
Yeah.
Did you guys?
They're just socially not capable. But like they didn't even show their actual.
I was gonna say this is pre Iron Man, before Iron Man was Iron Man.
Yeah.
Did you guys appreciate? That was I did not expect that. I was and it's just
that
Robert
was a
Downey.
huge surprise. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, and he was kind of weird in this movie.
That is the second. So that is the second person in this movie to star in a billion-dollar superhero franchise. You guys want to take a crack at who the other one is?
Anthony Michael. No, it's not Anthony Michael.
Wait,
that is
what?
Anthony Michael Hall.
Is it really?
Yeah.
He's in The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Oh wow, he's in The Dark Knight. Oh,
yeah, he's Mike Angle with Gotham Tonight.
I like the bar scene. That stuff was pretty cool. Pretty funny.
That was my favorite scene. That was
the first time where Anthony Michael Hall acted black.
Yep.
He does it great.
Strange.
He does it great because I laughed my ass off. That was awesome. That was great.
I can't believe this kid. This is the fucking whitest kid known to man. Come on, man.
What
this boy talking about on the telephone, man?
Explain it
what
to
the goddamn, we know there's a telephone, boy. What the hell thing I doing?
That's why it's hilarious. I love it. Or when they're driving and he's just like, like it's like, oh shit. It's just hilarious. It was great. I liked him. I don't know.
Yeah, I liked the bar scene. I thought, like subtle racism. It's the same thing with.
It's funny because where the bar's at, it's called
in 16 Candles too was the subtle racism.
Yeah,
and then the 80s it was like funny to be racist.
Yeah, I mean Long Duck Dong is the same.
Oh boy.
But
I think that's okay. So what's worse, Long Duck Dong or Anthony Michael Hall's black voice?
Oh, to be honest, at least Long Duck Dong is in fact an Asian man. But like, so my guy, I mean that's a man making fun of himself. He don't
symbols.
give a shit. He got paid.
They banged a gong every time they said his name, and I don't know.
Yeah, but they went to the hood to go to a bar. Like that was the hood, bro. Like
there's no right answer to be clear, but.
Yeah, no, the part where Lisa's talking to the parents of Anthony Michael Hall.
Oh yeah, she pulls a gun on him. That's so ridiculous.
That was so that was one of the times where the absurdity got like worked. I felt the absurdity in that scene really worked because that was funny.
Oh yeah, it was so ridiculous. Like my favorite line is from that scene too.
Like the rest of this movie, it was too off the rails without anything guiding it. And like it ended up not working. It ended up working against the movie instead of for it. You know, like that's where I end up landing with it, where it's like, you know, there's funny moments, there's funny ideas, but
Right.
overall,
It didn't. It
it's
wasn't.
chaos, and
Yeah,
it's
it was.
not.
It is.
It's a
It's
mess.
full
It's a
blown
mess.
chaos.
a
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's a mess of a movie. It really is. Like
No, it is.
Yeah.
structurally, like from a filmmaking standpoint, it's a mess. You know,
Oh, definitely.
not
Yeah.
just like the crazy. shit
She's
that
like a
happens.
magician. She knows everything that's kind of going on.
It's like
He
he
knows
wrote.
what's
Like,
fun.
it's like he
Yeah,
wrote
like-
the whole movie in a day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
feels
he
like.
he directed
This came
and
out-
wrote the whole
this
movie in a
came
day.
out-
Yeah.
This came out the same year as Breakfast Club. Hold on,
Yes, it
hold
did.
on.
Yeah.
And
Yes, it
so
did.
So I feel like he fledged out his script for Breakfast Club way more than this. He wrote
Good.
this, I'm
I'm
assuming,
glad.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
I mean, he
I-
like pushed out a bunch of movies in a
Well,
little bit of time
Yeah,
too.
like the '80s he was rocking. Like
He
he
was
was
going
making
through.
big bucks.
gotta get that money,
Yeah, he
man.
was.
Get it going.
Pumping them out like he
I
was
don't know.
pumping out scripts like
That's
crazy.
why-
Let alone
That's why I
He
feel
did-
like
the 3 movies that we're talking about, he put them out within 2 years of each other.
Mhm.
1984 and 1985 are the only years that we're
Well,
talking
and
about right now.
86 was Ferris Bueller,
Ferris
and
Bueller.
then
Yeah,
he
but like
also
that's
did
still just 1 year
Pretty
after.
in
Like the
Pink.
turnaround time
Yeah.
is insane.
That's why I feel like for this, he was just like, you know what, guys, let's just this works. Let's just do this. Like it was
But
probably
you
just
know,
like a
like
break
one
time.
thing
Like
that like I will give all of these movies, quite frankly, but this one specifically, because this one does seem very rushed.
oh
Yes.
yeah.
The cast did a great job because
yeah,
like
they were great.
they probably had like one take and they're like, all right, we got to get the next one.
Yeah,
Next shot.
yeah, that's what the movie felt like for sure. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
like the cast still did it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they like all of them
Absolutely,
are just like at a baseline still
Mhm.
talented, you know?
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
So-
No, I agree. I think they're definitely I don't
It's definitely 80s. Like it's
yeah, that is a
This is
that
the
is a
annoying
dated
80s.
movie. That
This
is
is
a
a
dated
dated
like
movie.
the annoying 80s that I was worried about with 16 Candles.
Do we want to rate
can
Weird
rate
Science?
this.
Do
Yeah,
we
let's
have
rate-
anything else?
I don't
I
think
got
we have
nothing
anything else.
No, I mean,
It's
this movie
chaos.
was weird as shit.
Let's rate Weird Science. Anna, would you like to go first?
A 3 out of 10. So, and the reason for that being is because I get it. It's a mark of its time. La 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 la. I obviously don't relate to it because I will never understand the necessity to only focus on sex
Yeah.
build up. I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't care if they received consequences or didn't receive consequences. I didn't care that Lisa was the Nanny McPhee of the internet and just fucking vanished until she was the gym teacher. Like, I probably wouldn't watch the movie again,
I
to
didn't
be
get that either.
honest.
I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 10 as well. I think I don't know. I enjoyed some moments. Some moments were funny. I was a little engaged in the beginning, but after a while it kind of took a toll on me and I didn't care. But yeah, it was just very, very messy, just too much stuff going on.
I don't know. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. You know, there is still a lot to appreciate about the movie for me. Like, there's a lot of impressive shit going on. Like, it's like amongst
you know what?
the chaos, there is
yeah.
a lot lot of effort going
There's-
into
Yes.
the
there's-
execution of
Like
it.
the
even if
missile and the
Well,
it
like
makes
the
kitchen is
effects,
blue.
yeah,
no
the
sense at
blue-
all.
But the effects are pretty like what Chet turning into that Jabba the Hutt looking thing was pretty.
Yeah,
pretty
this
cool.
movie did not deserve the budget it got because there was definitely a lot,
I feel like
a
John
lot
Hughes
of
was
Yeah.
just
cool shit going on.
John Hughes was really like he said, I'm doing sci-fi. I'm going all out with the sci-fi stuff. So I kind of felt that vibe where it's like he wanted to try everything as much as he could,
yeah,
as
and
long,
I mean,
while having
you know,
fun with it. So I could
in
see
terms
that.
of like, I mean, I know I mentioned earlier, like it doesn't like this seems kind of like first draft, first take sort of movie. With stuff like that, there's a lot of effort in the production and in some of the
Yes.
effects work, which it did keep me engaged enough to enjoy the movie. I don't think I'd watch it again, but.
So far from these 3 movies, what do you guys like about John Hughes that he uses in these 3 movies? Is there something you see specifically that he kind of goes to? I know with M. Night Shyamalan, we see a lot of his, like you mentioned earlier, his bag of tricks, but is there anything like specifically you see with John Hughes that you kind of like or you don't like?
I think that he's able to direct production design
Very well.
flawlessly.
Yes.
And I
He's
think
just-
that
uses his surroundings really well.
He's able to craft an environment in front of the camera that really works. But what makes it a little bit different than, coming up with the bag of tricks for, say, Shyamalan, is that Shyamalan makes his stuff for him. Whereas John Hughes has a shit ton of other stuff that he doesn't direct. Like, he has stuff that we're not going to end up talking about, like Pretty in Pink or any of the vacation movies. Just because he wrote those, but
Home Alone.
Still, yeah, exactly. Like, we're not going to get to that because he didn't direct it, but you see some of those script tropes in those movies. But as far as as directing goes, he's more invisible in terms of like actual direction and all that. But it really does come through in the production, and I mean, I guess the casting too. He's got to have a say in that. He
the casting
enjoys his Anthony Michael Hall.
But casting is I think you can definitely feel the difference in all these characters, and I like that.
The casting is great in all these movies.
Doesn't mesh. It doesn't get too bland, and I like that a lot.
Well, and speaking of the characters and kind of how he directs them, is I think that the one thing that I can probably appreciate about his directing from an acting standpoint is that he really pays attention to his actors, and if he thinks that something is funny or thinks that like maybe we can get a little bit more of their personality by doing it, then he's like, just roll it. Like you do what you feel like this character will do, because he did a lot of that in Breakfast Club. Like I think there's some interviews where they talk about how a lot of it is improvised, and you'll see in all of these movies that if that not only are the characters his characters, but he lets the actors make it their own and totally embody those characters.
They all like, you can tell authentic. They all feel like they have a great time. Like they love being on set. They're being themselves. I feel like with Shyamalan, they kind of like were forced. This one, you could definitely feel like they really gradually love being on set with him, and I think that just shows who he is as a person. That's really good, and I like that a lot. It's that chemistry. That's very
absolutely.
Good. Definitely. I enjoy that a lot.
And it can be hard to build that kind of chemistry with your actors too. Like, some people end up fucking hating their directors because a lot of directors get so set in their vision of how they want things to be that they feel like they need to control a lot of what actors are doing. And I feel like I don't get that from John Hughes movies. I feel like he really works with them to make sure that there's that there.
I feel like it's very. I mean, I'm not much into theater, but it feels like theater where he's setting up the stage and letting you
exactly
the thing. So
absolutely agree.
I like that a lot.
I'm really, really grateful you guys brought me on for John Hughes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
You did really great.
Jesus.
I know.
Thanks, friends.
I got like the mic's fired over there.
I gotta.
I know. Seriously. So we're gonna be discussing Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and she's having a baby, which. Yeah, she's having a baby. So, guys.
Alternate title: She's having a baby? ? Is she having a baby? We'll find out.
I guess.
Stay tuned, huh?
Fair enough. You guys check those out. You can join our discussion, and this was fun. This is definitely different than what we had before. And thank you, Anna, for
coming on.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
You guys have a nice.
I respect you, Anna.
Yes, I respect you, Tyler.
You guys have a nice quarantine, and be smart, please.
Keep it safe, y'all.
Let's just go, let's just do it. Let's get down, get the people into it. Let's just go, let's just do it. Let's get down, get the people into it.